If you thought that the 15 rounds of voting that took place in January of this year, when Kevin McCarthy was trying to become Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, was a really interesting Donnybrook to behold, get ready, because we may be headed for another one of those kind of fights. What am I talking about? Hang on, folks. We're going to get into all this in just 1 second. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative. Step on up to my electronic front porch and let's talk. As everyone by now knows, the speakership of the U.S. House of Representatives is vacant due to the fact that the body removed Kevin McCarthy from his position. Since then, names have been brought forward by individuals who wish to be the next Speaker of the House. Two of them include Steve Scalise, Republican of Louisiana, and Jim Jordan, Republican of Ohio. Today, Wednesday, the 11th of October, the House GOP held a caucus to vote on who they wanted to nominate to be the Speaker, and then from there, take it to a vote on the floor. Well, the vote wound up coming out in Scalise's favor, but he now has a problem. He may have the nomination, but no one's quite sure yet whether or not he has the votes. Let's start looking at this by going to thehill.com. Headline: Scalise struggling to secure GOP floor votes for speakership. Article written by Emily Brooks and Michael Schnell. We read the following. House Speaker designate Steve Scalise, Republican of Louisiana, is struggling to win support he will need to be elected to the top spot on the House floor, signaling what could be a sequel to his predecessor's fight to win the gavel in January. Scalise scored a victory on Wednesday by defeating House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, Republican of Ohio, in the conference's internal vote to become the GOP nominee for Speaker. But the tally was a slim 113-99 victory, with around a dozen votes for other or present, and even after Jordan swung his support to Scalise following the vote, it was unclear if his supporters would do the same. At least 7 Republicans say they plan to back someone other than Scalise. At least 6 others say they are undecided, and some have declined to comment on who they will stand behind. Enough resistance to deny Scalise the speakership on the House floor. Democrats are all but expected to unite behind Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat of New York, as their preferred speaker, just as they did in lockstep through 15 ballots in January. That means Scalise, just like deposed Speaker Kevin McCarthy, can only afford a handful of Republican defections. But a second floor fight for the speakership, a sequel to McCarthy's marathon battle in January, would come with a dangerous backdrop: a war in Israel and a November government funding deadline, both of which loom over the divided GOP conference. Members leaving the GOP nominating meeting were told that the House would start a floor vote as soon as 3 p.m. on Wednesday, just hours after the Republicans narrowly selected Scalise. But with the apparent opposition, the House went into recess, and holdouts against Scalise shuffled in and out of the Speaker's suite to meet with him. The House is set to reconvene at noon on Thursday, but it is not clear whether it will then move to a floor vote for Speaker. Okay, let's get into this because it is juicy. Okay, the 2 top names that have been brought up: Scalise of Louisiana, Jordan of Ohio. Both of these guys are good dudes. Generally speaking, I don't agree with them on every issue, but then again, I don't expect to agree with any politician on every issue. And if that starts happening, I start getting nervous. But I digress. Scalise came out of the conference's internal vote by 113-99, but even that 113 is shaky. The reason being, 3 of those votes are from delegates to the Congress, places like Puerto Rico, Guam, the Virgin Islands, etc. They can represent, but they can't vote on the House floor. So the reality is Scalise only has 110 votes firmed up going into this thing as of the vote they took on Wednesday. Now, I have no doubt that there's been a lot of meetings and a lot of arm twisting and a lot of conversations that have been going on ever since the House GOP came out of its caucus. As it stands right now, Scalise doesn't have the votes. Now, let's look at the two men in general. I've got no problem with Steve Scalise on the whole. I think he's a solid conservative. Like I said, I don't agree with him on every issue. And there's a lot in the guy's background that's to be admired. Let's remember, this man has overcome some personal tragedy in his life. While playing a baseball game, he was shot by a would-be attacker. He survived that, came back to fulfill his duties in the House. Scalise is also currently battling cancer. Again, trudging right on, performing his duties, trying to represent his district in Louisiana, and trying to perform his duties as House Majority Leader. Guy's got a lot to admire, but on the downside, to me, he's McCarthy light. And the fact that they tried to push a vote just as soon as the House GOP voted internally about this, to me means the establishment in Washington wants to get Scalise in. Now, if we were at any other time in American history, I might not have a problem with Steve Scalise as Speaker, but these are unusual times, and it calls for unusual leadership, which right now, no offense to Scalise, he's not that. Jordan, on the other hand, is a solid conservative, represented by the Freedom Caucus. He's well respected by everybody, moderates included. My problem with Jordan is, like I've said before, he's a lot of talk, but not a lot of delivery. He goes on and on about the weaponization of the Justice Department, talks about how Google and Facebook are censoring free speech. But what is he doing to solve these problems, aside from talking? I'm not so sure. Like I say, both of these guys have pluses, both of them have minuses. But when they took it to a vote in the caucus, Scalise prevailed. He's got the nomination, but no one's quite sure yet whether he has the votes. Let me show you another article from thehill.com. This is what they call the whip list. Take a look at this. This is really interesting. Voting for someone other than Scalise. Lauren Boebert, okay, you'd probably expect her name up there. Bob Good of Virginia, same thing. Marjorie Taylor Greene, a backer of Kevin McCarthy when the vote for motion to vacate came down. She says she's voting for Jordan. Nancy Mace of South Carolina. As a side note, Rich Barris, one of the people I follow in polling, made a comment on Twitter that she's starting to grow on him. I can't disagree with Rich Barris' assessment, but again, I digress. Max Miller of Ohio, Lloyd Smucker of Pennsylvania, and here's an interesting one, Carlos Jimenez of Florida. He's not voting for Scalise, nor is he voting for Jordan. He's going to nominate Kevin McCarthy back into the job. Now, that's going to be really interesting to watch. Here are some other names. Ken Buck of Colorado, Michael Cloud of Texas, Thomas Massie of Ohio. We'll show you his tweet here in just a second. Chip Roy of Texas, Victoria Sparts of Indiana, Mike Turner of Ohio. Now, I pointed out Thomas Massie. Take a look at this. This is really interesting. Surprises are for little kids at birthday parties, not Congress. So I let Scalise know in person that he does not have my vote on the floor because he has not articulated a viable plan for avoiding an omnibus. Now, if you're wondering what he's talking about, remember that article from thehill.com. One of the things that's coming up very quickly is that government funding will run out in mid-November. So there's one of two ways to solve that problem. Either the House and the Senate both pass their appropriations bills, work out their difference in conference committee, and then take the conference committee report back to their respective houses, they vote on it, and everybody goes home. Or the possibility exists that we could create one gigantic omnibus bill, cram everything into it, nobody has time to read it, spend more money than we've got, and keep on doing the same thing we've been doing really since 2006. Massie does not want to see that happen, and for the record, I don't blame him. I don't want to see it happen either. I want to see Congress do its job. So that's why he's not supporting Scalise. Scalise hasn't told anybody yet how he's going to avoid that little problem. So Massie's opposition is not necessarily surprising, but I guess in one sense it is. So where's this going to go? As it stands right now, the House is in recess until Thursday. Maybe they bring up a vote, maybe they don't. But if they do bring up a vote, can Scalise be guaranteed he wins on the first ballot? Well, not unless he does some serious arm-twisting, back-slapping, and conversating between now and then. And frankly, I don't think he will win on the first ballot. If there are multiple ballots, this thing's going to go for a while. Who knows? We might have another 15 rounds of balloting. But if that happens, and Scalise does wind up becoming Speaker, my question is, what does he have to give people like Boebert, Nancy Mace, Thomas Massie, and others? Remember, when the Freedom Caucus gave their votes to McCarthy back in January, they managed to wring a significant number of concessions out of him. From my perspective, those concessions put the power back in the hands of the members of the House and took it away from the leadership, a development that I thought was very healthy. Is Scalise willing to do the same thing? And if so, what exactly is he willing to give up? And if he does give it up, does that really make him a good speaker? A powerful speaker is maybe the better way of saying it. Well, only time will tell. There's also another question. Is Scalise willing to go the same distance that McCarthy was? Let's say that opposition stands solid and they keep voting round after round after round. Does Scalise really want this thing to go the same way McCarthy did? Does he have the same kind of stomach for that kind of fight? Yet to be determined. This is going to be a lot of fun to watch, and I have no idea how it's going to shake out. But I'll tell you this much, we will keep you advised of events as they come forward. But that's what I've got to say about it. Tell me what you think. As we start to wrap up this video, please do me some favors as always. Number 1, if you're not a subscriber to the channel, please do so. Number 2, please leave a comment below. I would love to know what you think about all this. Number 3, hit the bell for notifications. I want to make sure you're always aware when new videos, new live streams are coming out. Number 4, please share the video around. And finally, please give me a thumbs up. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your Front Porch Conservative, and I'll see you next time.